This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
The biggest icon in podcasting.
Welcome everybody to this week's edition of Doc and Jock. I am the Doc, John Macron. Joining me as always, my cousin Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Oh boy, Saturday football for the Detroit Lions, nationally televised audience. I don't think we need to do that ever again. Wow, what a nasty performance. The league did the Lions dirty, and the decisions that the Lions made in terms of who they put where, in terms of Robert Prince coaching, being the head coach, Evan Rothstein, the research guy, calling plays on defense, Sean Ryan, the quarterback's coach, calling plays offensively. It was a disaster top to bottom. I can't wait to recap it. And then a quarterback that obviously we joked around about last week gets himself cut. And we'll talk about kind of the roster and things and how it's going to progress for the Detroit Lions. I look forward to it. Wrapping up 2021 here at the podcast has been great. Cuz, what's happening, sir?
How was your Christmas? Happy New Year, by the way.
It was great. It was kind of relaxing, taking the week off. Basically, I shut it down last Wednesday. I was like, you know what? The kids are out of school, so I'll just take my vacation along with them. So it was absolutely perfect, man. 7 days has just flown by. I just can't believe it because I'm still doing the work for the podcast and Sports Illustrated. I'm just doing it all from home. I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to lay low, stay at home. Days are flying by, just enjoying time, relaxing a little bit, testing out new whiskeys. That's all you can do, man, is just enjoy time off if you get it and just relax, but keep busy at the same time because the NFL is a train that never stops. There's always something to do. So if I need an hour to do something, I just look up something for the Lions and the coaching search, the general manager search, the nasty play that they put on the field. So it was good, too, to get out there on a Saturday. I wish they would have moved it back to Monday. I could have had, Wednesday through Saturday off, but by and large, Christmas was good. It wasn't the same without hanging out with you guys and the family, but on a quiet level, I just, on Christmas Eve, busted out the proper 12, busted out the champagne and the mimosas on Christmas morning. Hey, man, it's good. Let the alcohol flow, and it was a good time. You?
Did you end up getting hammered or no?
No. I've gotten to the point where I can't just get to that point because it ruins another whole day, and I got stuff to do. So just find that sweet spot where you're chill, where the kids could be doing hurricane ranas on each other, and you're like, kids, just stop. Oh, Maddie's pile driving Olivia. No, it's okay. Just don't, it's going to toughen them up, So that fine line of a nice long buzz where you don't go over the top, where you still can't function. So I found that sweet zone. And really for me, because I'm a lightweight, just a glass here and there, glass and a shot, and I'm ready to just conversate, lay on the couch, shoot the breeze, and figure out, how I'm going to pay the Amazon bill that's going to come this month.
Right, for sure.
Oh.
No, mine was similar, man. It was real low key. I mean, everything going on with COVID, we were separated, which was weird. I had a couple beers with my dad, and then after that, Christmas morning, same thing. I had mimosas, but I always hold the OJ with the mimosas, so it's just straight champagne.
Yeah.
I had some of those before we had breakfast with my mom, but otherwise, man, super low key. Did you get everything you wanted? Were you a good little boy this year? Did Santa stuff your stocking?
Absolutely. I was a great boy this year, and it was great because this year got into grilling, so the wife hooked it up with stuff for the
About time you earned your man card.
That's right, man. Good stuff, man. Got a probe, she found a Michigan State scraper. It was awesome. Cleaning supplies, everything's good. I got the Weber kettle, not going into the big stuff. I mean, there's grills out there and steam and things like that and smokers for like $2,000. I'm like, no. 150 is perfect, nice and large. Been grilling up steaks on the Weber kettle, watching some videos, getting the probe in there, cooking the meat and hamburgers perfectly. I'm like, you know what? I'm kind of 50-50. I don't have a preference either way from propane or charcoal, but the charcoal has a unique taste that's just really good.
Charcoal tastes so much better.
It does, but it does. It has a different taste. I don't know if it's like significantly better for my taste buds, but I do enjoy it. So I definitely get out there and fire it up and got some accessories and toys with it. And then it was amazing. She was like, you know what? He likes Michigan State, so she got me Michigan State blanket, Michigan State phone accessory. She just said, I'm gonna go out with Michigan State and slippers. And my sister came over and she was like, man, it looks like Michigan State threw up up all over you. And I'm like, of course. And then they go on a 3-game losing streak in the Big Ten. So the jinx is real. The DSP curse is real. But I don't care, man. I'm pimped out in all Michigan State gear. So it was a good Christmas overall.
That's awesome, man. Something that looked like they threw up all over themselves were those Detroit Lions on Saturday.
Man.
Totally shell-shocked when Tom Brady came to town. And when we were kind of talking, trying to lay out the show, you posed an interesting question. You said, was this the worst loss for this Detroit Lions team this year? And I'm assuming that you think it is.
I put that out there, and many people will say, well, maybe that first game where if DeAndre Swift makes that catch sets the tone for a different year, or the Thanksgiving game where it was just a total embarrassment. But top to bottom, because it was so bad in regards to the fact that Gronkowski was so open, Godwin was so open, Evans so open. It appeared as if the Lions quit, because there's no way in which a defensive scheme would be that lax that would allow the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to just run up and down the field and then let Blaine Gabbert do the same thing to you. It appeared as though the team just is going through the motions. They said, the league screwed us, so we're not going to worry about anything relevant on the field. I mean, what a microcosm for the season in which Jelani Tavai finally makes a play. First series of the game. Evan Rothstein calls a blitz on 3rd down. Tavai gets there, sacks Tom Brady. You're off the field. Oh, but wait. There's a flag on Everson Griffin, who I guess I didn't know, but I guess he has a reputation of jumping off sides at least once a game in Minnesota. And from there, the Bucs ran a train all over you, and it set the tone. And it's interesting in that, Everson Griffin replied to my grades defensively. And I just, real quickly as a side tangent, he replied and said, it's my fault. Which, in essence, if you read the headline, I didn't blame Everson Griffin. I just put a photo of him there. But I said his penalty, which the coach of the other team called out as being undisciplined, if you read the article, he said, Bruce Arians said, their undisciplined play came to our advantage. So, yes, when you jump off sides, it's undisciplined. And I didn't say the defensive performance was squarely, at the feet of Everson Griffin. I said it set the tone, which means that you started the game off with a mistake, and then it rode the wave to a real bad mistake. So, I respect him for replying, but people didn't understand what they were reading or understand the headline. But he was part of the problem. And unfortunately, that defense, was I surprised? No. But was it disheartening to watch? It was a lackadaisical, all-around bad effort. So I ranked it as the worst loss of the season.
Yeah, it was pretty shocking how bad they were and how they were just so out of position. I mean, you could basically do basic football, just run a cover 2 with 2 high safeties, and then basically everybody else just kind of line up on a guy and just don't get beat. And, that's sometimes easier said than done because there are some great athletes who are playing across from you. I mean, Tom Brady went to Tampa Bay for a reason, because they have pieces. They have athletes. And you just went through and you named a bunch of them for Tampa Bay, and all of those guys got on the scoreboard, and all of those guys did some things. I mean, Rob Gronkowski coming back from after taking a year off looks reinvigorated and rejuvenated as the season has wore on. He's only gotten better. Tom Brady picked apart that defense, just completely obliterated it. And whether it was the defense was undisciplined and was jumping off sides, or they just couldn't get going, it didn't look good. It was a bad performance. Matt Stafford going down early didn't help the cause. I'm not really sure. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how many times you watched that replay of Matt Stafford in his foot. I think he broke a bone in his foot. Just kind of the way his foot kind of rolled, like the front of his foot rolls up underneath him, and it looks like you could almost see it when the bone pops, and he couldn't put any pressure on it. So to me, it screams broken bone in your foot. I don't know how he plays this upcoming week. For me, this wasn't the worst loss of the season. This was close because they were completely eviscerated by this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. But taking everything into consideration, you had really none of your coordinators. You didn't have your head coach. Oh. You ended up having a wide receivers coach as your head coach, and you had other guys filling in for spot duty, and you could tell that those guys were definitely in over their head. You lose your quarterback on your very first series, and on top of all of that, you're dealing with a bunch of issues with missing guys on your defense because of COVID-related issues. For me, the worst loss of this season, taking everything into consideration, was the game against the Carolina Panthers where you were shut out. That's a Carolina Panthers team that is no better than you record-wise. And they brought in an XFL quarterback who was making his first start ever. And he tore you up and he torched you. And you couldn't put any points on the board with your starting quarterback in Matt Stafford. You couldn't do anything with your full host of coaches and coordinators. You couldn't do anything that day. And you were completely and utterly embarrassed. And again, by a guy who a few weeks earlier was in Vince McMahon's second reiteration of a wrestling football league. That had to be the worst loss of the season for me. Just kind of watching how this game played out with the Tampa Bay Bucks and watching how that game played out versus the Carolina Panthers. They're close. They are really close because, like you said, it doesn't even look like they put an effort forth this past Saturday. But to get manhandled with your full accoutrement of players and not put any points on the board and just be completely decimated by a Carolina Panthers team that was pretty beat up was pretty bad.
Yeah, it stinks too because there's inherent excuses. No Frank Ragnow, no Kenny Galladay. The thing that is frustrating is that every decision that is key that Bob Quinn probably had to make turned out wrong. I mean, you give Chase Daniel a 3-year contract, and so obviously, what's the purpose of the backup? Cuz, what's the purpose of having Vito? If Doc and Jock don't want to do a podcast, we're pretty comfortable that Vito can turn on the microphone and air a podcast. Now he'll talk your ear off, and it won't be the same. It won't have the same flair as Doc and Jock. It'll be way more professional, but it'll be entertaining. He can get it out there. Chase Daniel, in about 10 drives, I don't believe crossed midfield. Obviously didn't get to the red zone and had to be replaced in the fourth quarter. So that's the guy that you tapped to be the backup to Matthew Stafford. And that's why it's so frustrating. All the support that people give Stafford is that the idea of a backup is somebody that if you need him, if Stafford's going to roll his ankle, if he's going to twist his thumb, if he just wakes up one day with the flu or something happens and he's hanging out with Kelly and he gets the Rona, you got to call on Chase Daniel to run the offense. And it looked like he had never practiced once with Detroit. And that's the guy everyone's like, oh, Chase Daniel, this is great. It's Stafford, Daniel Blau. That's not how a real team operates. And so obviously we're going to write about it that the team needs new backup quarterbacks, and there's maybe one out there that we can discuss in a few minutes. But it's not right. It's not correct. Yes, he's a great guy in the room, and yes, he can share insights with Stafford in the room. But don't you think Ryan Fitzpatrick or somebody else who actually can play the game that, potentially if you call upon him like, the Miami Dolphins have done, could actually go out there and then change the momentum? See, that's where the problem lies with the Lions, is that they're so beholden to Matthew Stafford. They, for some reason, now I thought there would at least be some law of diminishing return on Stafford's tough. But, or Stafford's tough or Stafford wants to play. No crap. And they still write it. All the beat writers are writing Stafford's tough and Stafford wants to play. Stafford spoke for damn near 8 minutes yesterday on Monday of this week. And the biggest thing that you guys all took away was that he wants to play. And all the beat writers wrote the same thing. Come on now. It's pretty obvious what's going on here. Stafford's tough. Stafford wants to play. No shit, dude. If you pay him $30 million and my company's like, I'm going to pay you $1 million a week, I'm going to say all that. I want to play. I want to be out there so bad. I love the game. I love playing football. Bottom line, Stafford's getting beat up. He's not there. And he actually, obviously, he's breaking down last 3 years. And he's tough. He's going to play through it. He'll get out there. Yeah, well, the next step is if you look in the line of what's happening here with Stafford, rib injury, ankle injury, thumb injury, you're, one more serious hit away from a season-ending injury going forward. So the backup you chose is Chase Daniel, and that's what you get, is you get an offense that looked like it never played before, never practiced. So while it was nice to talk about the team having fun, people definitely care about not getting embarrassed on national television. Go out and secure a backup or draft Stafford's replacement. That's the story. Decide what to do with Stafford, make the decision, get the draft picks, and tear it down. And the idea, and we'll talk more about it in future episodes, of people's lack of trust with general managers, I understand it. But if you don't have hope that the team will pick people, then why are you a fan of the team? If you're just you sound like the fans that are like, well, don't tank because of the fact that you won't get the right pick. then it sounds like you're never going to believe the Lions are going to win. At least you and I say tank, and we have belief that the player will do good. Then he'll get on the field, and then he'll stink. But at least there's hope that tanking will be the right situation for this team. But in terms of the backup, man, that was embarrassing. Chase Daniel, that's the guy you tap to give a 3-year contract to. Now, it won't cost much to get rid of him, so that's not a big problem in today's NFL, but the cap is shrinking, and in future episodes, pay attention because of the fact that the cap is shrinking. If you move on from Stafford, you definitely are going to cause a problem, and because the franchise tag on Galladay is going to cause a problem. So there's no guarantee Aquara's coming back. It's not looking good for at least 2021 in terms of what's going to happen, but at least in my opinion, the first thing that needs to happen is you got to target a backup so that you can go out there and maybe not allocate a first-round pick to a quarterback so you can focus all the picks on the defense. Would you be willing to consider the recently released Dwayne Haskins? The guy is crazy. Guy was pretty much on the chopping block, still went out to the strip club without a mask, got his photo taken, and he stunk so bad. Obviously wasn't ready to play the Panthers, and he got whacked. 23 years old, first-round pick. Would you bring him in as a reclamation project and just only guarantee him the backup job? There's no guarantee he's going to be a good player, but at least you could start with that, maybe bring in a veteran, then you draft a quarterback later. If you can target and the next general manager has an eye for quarterback talent late, you have a situation in which you can blow out Daniel, slide in Haskins, don't use the 7th pick on a quarterback, and you move forward, because I think that gets you the rebuild faster. But I'm definitely intrigued by Justin Fields. Could he be that next guy? But he kind of has the feel of a Haskins to me. His reads, when you look at it, the complaints I've seen online are valid. You're not getting Zach Wilson. You're probably not getting the top-end quarterbacks. Would you take a chance on Dwayne Haskins, or is he just way too wild? Would he find 8 Mile way too fast? He'd be like, all right, right from the airport, right to 8 Mile. DocNJock, hit me up.
So Haskins was a guy that basically 2 years ago I was super high on. I thought he could make all the plays. I thought he could make all the reads. I thought he had a perfect touch. I thought he could do things. There was a game that the Ohio State played against TCU back in, I think it was like the 2019 college football season or the 2018 college football season, where he basically dropped back. He had pressure in his face, and he basically threw a dime. It might have been to McLaurin, and he basically threaded a needle, man. It was insane, the pass that he threw. It was great. And I was like, this guy is going to be all world. He's going to set the National Football League on fire. Obviously not mature enough. Obviously a lot of issues with his development and a lot of issues with his growth that took place in Washington. Looking at his stats, he's not a good quarterback. He really isn't. He fumbles the ball too much for me. Too many interceptions, not enough touchdowns, not enough completions. I would probably pass on him. I would not risk it. Here's the thing, and we're going to get into this in a few minutes, I think. But if everything happens the way it should happen this upcoming week, because I don't think either one of us believe Stafford's going to be able to go, the teams in front of Detroit end up winning the games that they need to win. Detroit could end up finishing the season with the 3rd overall draft pick. You could be sitting basically not necessarily in the driver's seat, because Jacksonville's in the driver's seat, and I think we all think they're going to take Trevor Lawrence. Depending on what the Jets do, right? Jets could possibly take Justin Fields. The Jets could possibly take an offensive lineman, because their offensive line is absolutely brutal. Depends on what they believe in Sam Darnold. The Detroit Lions could be there to then get either the next best quarterback or the quarterback that they feel is the best one out there. I think we all believe Trevor Lawrence is probably the best one out there. But they could take the guy who they feel is that franchise quarterback with that 3rd pick. If for some reason they end up in 4th, I think the Giants could maybe move ahead of Detroit. It would depend on strength of schedule. And at that point, Giants don't necessarily need a quarterback, do they? Unless they're ready to move on from Daniel Jones already. And I don't think they are. I think maybe one more season there. So I think Detroit is kind of in a good spot where they do control their own destiny. I mean, last year they really should have took their franchise quarterback, right? I mean, can we all agree on this finally? Enough consternation, enough arguing back and forth. You should have took your quarterback last year. And whether that was Tua or whether that was Herbert, you should have took your quarterback last year. You shouldn't have drafted a cornerback. Instead, you drafted a cornerback who kind of 50-50 whether he's going to be good or not. If this organization had Justin Herbert right now, would this team be in a much better spot? I think we all can agree. Now, I was a Tua guy, and I even think if you took Tua, you'd be in a much better spot. But all that being said, that's neither here nor there. This year, you're going to be in a spot where I think you can get your quarterback. And whether it's Zach Wilson, whether it's Trey Lance, whether it's Justin Fields, I think you're going to be able to get that guy. And I don't think you risk it with a guy like Dwayne Haskins, just because he hasn't proven the maturity level and he hasn't shown the ability to come in and act like a professional. I like everything he can do. I like the fact that he can run a little bit. I like the fact that he's an athlete. I like the fact that he can throw the football a little bit. I like that he has a good arm. I don't like all the baggage that comes along with him. And I don't like looking at his numbers. And do you realize over the course of basically his career has spanned only 16 games. He has played one NFL season. I'm going to give you some stats here. 60% for his completion percentage. Just over 2,800 yards passing. 12 touchdowns, 14 interceptions, 8 fumbles when dropping back to pass. Sacked 49 times. His rushing numbers. He's ran the ball for just under 150 yards. He has 1 touchdown. He has 4 fumbles. He is just a turnover machine. You can't have that out of the guy who's supposed to lead your team. On top of that, you can't have the maturity issues that he has demonstrated. Does he go on and catch on at another team? Maybe. Maybe Belichick gets him and turns him into something great. But if I'm the Detroit Lions, I have too many other problems to worry about what my backup quarterback might be doing, whether or not he's going to end up at the Coliseum and going to end up bringing COVID back, whether he's going to be hanging out with DocNJock and they end up at Centerfolds over there off of John R. and 8 Mile. And next thing you know, craziness ensues. I don't need to worry about that. I just don't. I'm going to pass, man. I'm going to pass. It's a hard pass.
Okay. Maybe he's not the right fit, but the idea is there that drafting a quarterback.
I think the idea is great.
Yeah. The problem is, because when you debate how do the Lions get to win faster, I don't know, drafting a quarterback gets you there exactly. You need it. It just
here's the thing. Before we move on, let's discuss this a little bit, because I think it's a really good question. I think we could maybe spend a ton of time here, so we might have to come back to revisit this. But this is the thing. You could conceivably trade Matthew Stafford, right? And you could possibly get a first-round draft pick from him. You could call the Patriots and say, hey, give me a first, I'll give you Matt. So now, again, going into this draft, they don't have a ton of draft capital. You have to move some guys. You have to trade some guys for some draft picks. Matt Stafford is your best piece you have. He will fetch you the most. Trade Stafford, right? You go into next year with Chase Daniels, it's going to suck. It is going to suck.
That's what you want. That's what you want.
Yes, it's going to be really, really bad. If you're sitting there at 3, you take your quarterback of the future if you believe that he is there. All right. You now then have possibly another top 15 pick from the Pats. All right. You can then add to your defense, or you can add to your offense, because obviously you're probably not going to have any wide receivers. I don't think you're bringing Galladay back. I'm not sure. That's a weird situation. It's up for the next general manager to figure out. Okay. You then start moving a couple of your other pieces on defense. Those will get you some draft picks later on in the draft, probably some 3rd, 4th, and 5th round picks. And then you just kind of spend the rest of this draft trying to upgrade and revamp this defense. You go into next year. If Chase Daniels is your quarterback, you're going to have a top 10 pick again. Can we both agree on that?
Absolutely. I think that's the plan. That's the plan. Try to get as much capital.
Point, you get the most impactful edge rusher. Or you get the most impactful linebacker that's out there. A guy who can captain your defense and really take it to that next level. And now you've got your captain and your quarterback on offense, and now you have your captain on your defense in either your linebacker or your edge rusher, whichever. And you go from there. I mean, this is not an easy process. This is a full rebuild. You have to scrap this down. You have to.
Yeah,
There's no other way you can go about this.
Especially on defense. You only got 5 players. The rest you got to move on from. And you're absolutely right. It's no quick fix, but I do at least have a little bit of hope the next general manager will be paired with a head coach that at least will turn things around in terms of the effort level on the field. I don't think that you're going to see disastrous performances like you did, like 47-7, and it's terrible. I think you got and it's unfortunate too, because you only got 5 draft picks, so you have to figure out a way that you pick up a couple more. And unfortunately, the double-edged sword is the only way you're going to pick up a couple more draft pick is looking at your assets, Galladay, looking at your assets in Stafford. So that's the only way to do it, is to kind of do not get attached to these players because, unfortunately, when the time comes and they need to win, they're probably going to be right out of their prime. So it's unfortunate. It's really tough. And there's definitely still a lot of pro Lions. There's still a lot of fans and supporters that message and say, hey, they got to win. But cuz winning this Sunday would be the worst thing that the Lions could do. They could theoretically go from 7 as if things were to shake. Now, there's not absolutes here, but what we're saying is if they lose, they're probably not going to draft anywhere worse than 8th. And they could go as high as 3 if upsets happen. So by and large, you're good now to draft in the top 10. You're good. You've accomplished the mission of stinking to the point of drafting the top 10. You go out there and you win and certain things happen, you could drop as low as 13. And that's pretty bad. And so for those of you that are like, oh, you know, the player's going to go out there and they're going to try their absolute best. And I understand that. But what has to happen is not Daryl Bevell, not the people that are in charge of coaching the team. Rod Wood has to stand up from his chair, stop looking at the numbers, put down your glasses, and say these words. Stafford sits. Thank you. And walk back upstairs. And nothing is said. Nothing is done. Boom. They ask. Bevel stands up there. You know, we don't want to risk it. Ankle is severe. He's got to be mobile. Minnesota features some defensive linemen that we're scared of. Lay the bullshit on us and sit Stafford. That's it. And then there's probably a high guarantee the team loses. That's what you got to do as an organization is you don't set the players. You just don't put them in the position to win by taking out the starter. That's all you got to do because then the next general manager will be very happy that you gave him the number 6 pick and the number 6 pick in every round. And remember, guys, okay, so what people do is they start to chop off the whole story, okay? You guys got Jonah Jackson. You got John Pennicini. You got DeAndre Swift because you drafted 3rd, okay? Yeah, the top guy didn't come in right away and do the thing, but you got other players that you acquired in drafts and picked because you had a higher pick. And when you have a higher pick, that gives you more draft capital to make a trade to maybe move up more. So the idea that tanking is all bad because the Lions don't know how to pick successfully, you got to have hope that the next guy will. And it's just basically improving your odds. The odds dictate that the higher you draft, the better the likelihood is. So you're going from like 50 to 52% odds that you're going to get a better player. Wouldn't you take that? And the vision is not losing now and we want to lose. The vision is you take better players so that in 5 years when the team is ready, you have the opportunity to have the best players and collect as much talent as humanly possible. So with that said, you know the Lions are winning this Sunday. They're going to ball out. Stafford's going to be out there zinging it to TJ, and everyone's going to be like, oh, look at us. We're the best. Look what we're doing. Look how great we are. Oh, ha, ha, all you tankers. Okay, watch what happens. The mission this week needs to be accepted, lose, and everything will fall into place. And that's just the way it is that drafting higher, you guys have had a 5-win team, 6-win team for the better part of a decade. Don't you want a 12-win team? And that can be set up relatively easily with the 2020, 2021, 2022 draft. 3 top 10 drafts, adding more, puts you in a position at least to rebuild this team if your general manager is the right hire and can evaluate talent. So just it's the right side of history, man. You guys are all on the wrong one. Winning does nothing. Once you're eliminated from the postseason, the only thing you should think about is the draft. And I think most people understand that. And I just think that there's a certain group of people, they're loud, but everyone knows they're wrong. Is there whatever when Everson Griffin messaged me and said, "Oh, it's my fault." I looked at the headline and the content. I put that Everson Griffin set the tone for a bad defense. In the defensive line grades, I never use his name. I don't use his name. I said he set the tone. He comes back with, "Oh, you blame me? No way, you're right." Okay, so obviously you're defensive. Obviously you're not happy getting called out. But I didn't say it was your fault. I said you set the tone, which means what that means is you made a mistake and it started the avalanche that was the disastrous performance. And you guys think that I'm just some genius doing this. I don't just come up with stuff. He said it to Dan Miller in the after. I watched the sports show. He's like, "Yeah, that was bad. You know, obviously I can't make that play. It obviously he said it." So because of the fact that I put it and used his photo, he then comes back at me, and then the fans are like, oh my God, you should stick to shoveling snow. What do you know? All I'm doing is parroting back what he said to the PR staff. Come on, guys. I'm not here creating nonsense here. He said it. I listened to his interview, 2 of them. He admitted it. I have the video. He said it was not the best thing to do. But you guys just rah-rah. Everything the Lions do is a blessing, and everything that we critique is wrong. Come on now. Come on, step it up. Step your games up, and let's get into 2020. They got enough PR staff. You don't need to be doing that. Just look for the things that help your team win, and that would entail losing this Sunday to the Vikings. Please do it. Perform at the level that you're capable of, and a loss should be there. Now, real quickly, got to turn our attention to Michigan. Finally, they broomed out Don Brown. Cuz, your reaction, and who in the hell is brave enough to take over this defense to try to fix it?
I have no idea.
Yeah, right.
I no clue, because it is so damn bad. Like, it is. I don't think it's like to the point where you can't fix it or it's unrepairable, but there's so many issues with it, whether it's just getting pressure to the quarterback, whether it's the secondary not being able to cover, whether it's your linebackers not being able to wrap up and tackle. There's just multiple issues. I really feel like this is another thing where you kind of got to scrap it down a little bit, and maybe you just kind of have to pare everything down, right? Don't go into it, especially your first go around, whoever this next defensive coordinator is going to be, and try to make it more difficult than it needs to be. I'm not sure who comes in and fixes it. But when Don Brown was let go, what it did to me was it signaled that obviously Jim Harbaugh is coming back. Jim Harbaugh will be here. There's going to be no change with this football team. If you want to point to Don Brown as being all of the problems with this team, I think you're short-sighted, because there are a lot of other problems with this team. And it doesn't just start and end with Don Brown. His defense, obviously not good. His defense couldn't cover a crossing pattern to save their lives, to save your mother's life. They couldn't do anything against a crossing pattern, especially if Ohio State's running it. But all that being said, there are more issues at the core of this program. And by bringing Jim Harbaugh back, you're just allowing them to continue to fester. So what's Harbaugh going to do? Bring another set of coordinators in? I mean, this guy flips coordinators more than you flip pancakes at a National Coney Island. You know what I'm saying? I don't know what this is going to do for this program unless Jim Harbaugh comes back reinvigorated and figures something out. Because honestly, he looked dead this year. He looked like a zombie. And that's not on Don Brown. Don Brown wasn't like, hey, I've got the magic elixir and it's going to be something that's going to turn you into a zombie. No, that wasn't Don Brown's fault. That's not the issue here. There's something else going on with this team. I think when it's all said and done, what we'll find out is Jim Harbaugh is operating with a reduced salary, because obviously he hasn't deserved his $8 million a year salary. So it'll probably be something closer to $3 million, and it'll be heavily incentivized. And maybe that motivates him. I mean, I'm not sure what it is to get this guy going, to get this program where it needs to be or where it should be. But what it's been performing as and what it's been putting out just isn't good enough. And it sounds like Jed Fish, who is I believe is the new coordinator for Arizona, I want to say. I think he's going to pinpoint Don Brown as his new defensive coordinator, which is crazy to me. Absolutely crazy. I mean, they don't play any defense in the Pac-12, but that's neither here nor there. The fact that you're going to go out and grab this guy and have him try to run some semblance of a defense is nuts to me.
Well, thankfully, Michigan State declined their bowl invitations, so we can start to look at it.
Oh my God.
Oh man.
Like, so sad. Like, just honestly, the state of Michigan football right now is awful. Hey, how do you feel about Rocky Lombardi transferring out?
Thank goodness.
Going to be going to Northern Illinois?
Yeah, it probably was needed to happen when you saw the level of performance that he had, man. It was tough.
I mean, look, if you're a Michigan State fan, I think you should be excited. What you got out of Mel Tucker this year is considered, right? We can't just do this looking at it very narrowly. We've got to kind of take everything into consideration here. This is a guy who came in, zero time to do any recruiting. The recruiting job that D'Antonio did was less than poor. It was actually like a gigantic bag of of dog crap set on fire on your front porch. It was absolutely brutal. The term Barry cupboard comes to mind here. That's what Mel Tucker was kind of left with. And Mel Tucker stepped in with a couple guys that obviously don't fit his scheme, but he was able to tailor things to eke out a couple wins, get a big win over Michigan for that program, and remain competitive for most of the year. And now what he's going to do is he's brooming a couple guys out. Hey, saying like, hey, your best bet would probably be to hit that transfer portal because you're not going to play.
Absolutely.
And a lot of those guys are going to hit that transfer portal, and he's got a couple other guys coming in. And it sounds like he's grabbing 4- and 5-star guys from the West, guys that he was recruiting to come play for him. And I look, Michigan State, everything is thumbs up for Michigan State right now.
Yeah, it's going to be fun to see how the teams rebuild, signing day, how officially when it takes place, how it's going to look. So real interesting stuff, but we're going to definitely pay attention to the off seasons of both Michigan and Michigan State to make sure that, okay, this season kind of a wash, I guess most people would say. There's still anger and things like that, but it's subsiding as now we turn our attention to 2021. All right, cuz, great podcast. Always enjoy the conversation. Make sure you follow Adam on Twitter at AdamRSJROZ. Follow the network at Detroit Podcast. Very good stuff. Thank you guys for the support. 2020 was awesome. 2021, I promise, is only going to get even bigger. Thanks, cuz.